What the fuck is happening, you guys? You know what's happening? That war in the former Soviet Union in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. I can't read anything. I can't look at any news story. I can't turn on anything without hearing about that. I heard one person, Crystalia, mention, he said one thing, and then that's not the end of. Shut up. He said, we're just acting like we know the story. We're just acting like what we're hearing is the truth, and we're getting the whole story. And then I heard Dakota Meyer say on JRE that both governments are corrupt. Nobody wants people to die. Nobody wants civilians to be killed. Obviously, nobody wants people's homes to be blown up. But ultimately, both governments are corrupt. So it's like, I just don't. Yeah, that was gross. I just burped. I apologize. I just don't understand. Enough about it is the truth. I don't understand enough about the whole deal. Unfortunately, or fortunately, either way. But it is just interesting that obviously everybody took, basically immediately took the. This side of the Ukrainians, which we're supposed to do. They're the victim, right? Nobody wants their apartment building blown up. Nobody wants their home attacked. Nobody wants their home country invaded. We personally have never had to deal with that. We personally in the United States in my lifetime have never been invaded. And last time, I would, be probably dumb to even try to say when I think the last time there was war on our soil, but wasn't it the Civil War? Wasn't that the last time that, we had people dying here in war? But again, there's probably something that I'm missing or not thinking about. But the idea is just like, what is the idea? I don't know the idea. We've never experienced that. I have no idea what that's like. So it's I'm not saying that it's wrong to be there for the victim. I'm not saying it's wrong to follow the narrative that we've been provided. I have of course mentioned, like other people, for instance, have said things like, it's fascinating that this is getting so much coverage. Like I heard Crystal Ball say on Breaking Points that, there's wars in other places. You know what I mean? Like there's wars in Yemen. There's wars in, which I wouldn't even know about if I hadn't heard, like, say, Dave Smith mention it. But then I've heard other people say that they're not a nuclear, and I always say that wrong. I always say that. I think it's nuclear, right? But they're not a nuclear superpower, right? So, like, for instance, I believe I've heard they don't have, like, nukes. So, for instance, people don't give a shit as much about what's going on in Yemen, whereas Russia, does have nukes. So it's a bigger deal because obviously, and, Putin, of course, saying he's going to wreak havoc, like the world has never seen, or whatever it was that he said. But, I can't imagine, I think even in our country, the rules right now are like, the draft, you would only be drafted if need be for like 18 to 25. And I think there was like reservists to begin with in Ukraine that are, ages 18 to 60. That are being brought into it. But not to mention, I even heard like a comedian on Tim Dillon's podcast saying, if you don't have a gun over here, you're a nobody. And I don't think he was kidding. I don't think he was joking about what he was saying. It's like crazy to hear that their president, Zelensky or whatever, is a comedian. But not crazy. I mean, fucking Joe Rogan could run for president and he'd be president tomorrow, but nobody wants that fucking job. He'd be, insane to do. You know what I mean? It's such a pay cut. The stress, nobody wants that stress, unless maybe they tell him about the aliens. I guess they'd probably, it could be. But his take on that even more recently is probably, I'd say more accurate than we realize, because the government's always so much further ahead. They're always so much further ahead than we realize. I even remember my grandpa, for instance, telling me when I was younger about what they were working on the Air Force when he was there, and it's like, stuff that we just use all the time now, as far as like satellite imagery and, GPS and things like that, I'm not saying that they'd just been new at that time, but certain things involving those, that I remember him discussing, that it was like, just normal, very, very normal, low tech to us at this present day. But, yeah, I don't remember what the fuck I was. Oh yeah, Ukraine again, because that's what everybody's talking about. That's all there is. That's all everybody's talking about. And I guess it's like, I understand, because right. I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine getting drafted. I can't imagine serving. I don't have the drive to serve. The only sadly, relation, the only connection I could even possibly make to battle or combat or war or anything, unless I've heard it from somebody that's experienced it, is like fictional stories. You know what I mean? Like the 300 is an example where like they trained their entire life for a chance to die on the battlefield, which again, no idea what these Ukrainians are going through. It is the entire news cycle. It's everything that you hear. It's everything everybody's talking about. And I understand it. I was trying to find information about like previously, but I remember they were talking about years ago in like 2018, Putin overthrowing, literally like billionaires would just disappear. So even really high powered people, whereas like some of these people that he's overtaking now, aren't even, they aren't necessarily like high powered people. It's just civilians at this point, beyond the reservists that they have started enlisting. I mean, it's just civilians with guns that are just trying to keep their country. And it is really cool to see that they've been able to stand up to Putin. And even like, I think he was talking about some other war, or like some other, invasion, but he was like, how do people, it was again Dakota Meyer on JRE, and he was just talking about like, how do people not understand that even if you overtake a place, you're going to spend the next 20 years in guerrilla warfare trying to keep it. Like you're never just going to be able to overtake a place and then keep it forever. And so it's just like, again, and clearly there's a lag time between when I record this and when it comes out. You know what I mean? So Ukraine who knows what could have happened by that time. But at this time, they're fighting off the invasion, and they're not falling as quickly or as easily as, say, Putin may have thought was going to happen. And I mean, that whole thing, just in general, like I was saying, is like he's overtaken people, he's disappeared people. Like I think he was in the KGB, right? So it's like he was former intelligence for it's just like, obviously he's not a guy to be trusted. I know I made a stupid joke last week. Of course, I always consider not airing things like that, but then it's like, well, then that's probably the reason why you should air it. Or send it, or people probably disagree with me, but that's okay. What are you gonna do? Yeah, it seems like the only thing in the news cycle, the only thing anybody's talking about, is what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. But yeah, it is just interesting. We don't really all know, unless you've done a lot of research. We don't really all know the ins and outs of everything, as far as like, I guess it's easy to say like, okay, they were both parts of the former Soviet Union, and then Russia wants to overtake that part of the country. But my point in saying that is like people saying like, there is corruption still there. And it's like, it's not a perfect, this guy's the bad guy and that guy's the good guy necessarily. It's just like, there's evil in the world everywhere. And this is, an unfortunate thing again, which I don't know a whole bunch about, but it's just like, it seems like that's what everybody's talking about, what the whole, you know what I mean? And it's like, I just feel like, I don't know, nothing about the invasion is cool. I'm not saying that at all. It is just fascinating to see the people the people in Ukraine, because again, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine what it would be like to have somebody invade our soil. I mean, I would be lucky to want to fight, but at this point, I have no drive to serve. I have no drive to want to go shoot people, risk my life. Like, I think about my son. I mean, even just the idea of like dying, from something like some heart thing or something like that is like, again, I think about my family, and it's like, yeah, there are some kids that their fathers are old when they're born. You know what I mean? So they don't have a lot of years left, which none of us do. But my point in saying that is I think about even stuff like that, and I don't want to leave my son or, just he needs a dad, right? I don't know. I don't guess I'm, things could always be better, right? But I was going to say, I'm here, and I didn't have a dad for a really long time, and I know you're like, fucking stop ringing that goddamn bell. Nobody wants to hear it anymore. Nobody fucking cares. We get it, dude. Everybody's got shit. But, yep, can't imagine. Can't imagine at all. I just, I don't know. I wonder if Ukrainian people will be able to overcome Putin's attack, but, again, it's even if they did, I think Dakota Meyer's right. And even again, if he wasn't talking about this and saying like, it's not like it's going to be a forever thing. Like they're not going to just be able to keep it forever. It's like it's not like it'll just work out. But I'm just glad we don't have anything like that here. You know what I mean? It seems like clearly if China wanted to at any time, they could do probably whatever they wanted to most of the world, right? And make however many of their citizens that have enough nutrition, you know what I mean, go along with it. I guess that's more Korea, North Korea, that they're malnutrition, but yeah, that's why you listen to me. That's why you're here. Yeah. I considered enlisting at one time, but it was, I thought it was like a last resort thing. It was like one of those, like you hear about stories, and I shouldn't say you hear, when I was a kid, which fucking hate that I'm already, whatever. People would say things like, they would get the option to go to jail or join the military. You know what I mean? And it was like literally an option that like judges, magistrates would give them. And maybe I made that up. Maybe we should look it up. Maybe we should see if that's true. Maybe it's a common myth. Well, I can't find anything quickly on that. But point in saying that, you would hear people, right? You're like, dude, thank you so much for looking on Google and fucking wasting all my time. That's killer. I'm really happy that you clickety clack those fucking typed on that keyboard enough to not find anything. You literally came up with nothing. Congratulations, you're a moron. But yeah, you would hear people say like, I had the option to go to jail or join the military. And so like I thought as a last resort, like I remember when I was younger, I was like, nothing else is working out. And it was like, I was probably like 19, right? So it'd been like, 1 year after high school, as if like that's the end of the fucking road. Like, oh my God. That's the end of the road, dude. Yep. You gotta figure it out now or you gotta jump, you know what I mean? Like, it's so funny. I guess, probably still have a narrow mind in a lot of ways, but sometimes when you get to look back, it's funny to see how just tunnel vision you had. And gosh, I'm sure in, who knows, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, however long I get lucky enough to live, I'll probably think back and think the same thing, that I was so narrow-minded and missed a lot of things. But yeah, at that time I was like, I didn't know what else I was going to do, right? And so I did try to basically just talk to an Air Force recruiter, and he was like, no, dude, somebody with your background, because I had gotten in trouble a couple times, like I got caught drinking and stuff as a teenager, which as far as the stories I've heard from a million people, that seems to be pretty normal that but I know that I did it excessively, but I'll admit that. But it it was a thing that I thought maybe, okay, well, I can offer my services to the military and at least I'll get some sort of maybe, I don't know. I know my grandpa fucking really rose in the ranks, like continued as an enlisted man for like 22 years, and it really rose up to like, I think the highest enlisted, E9 or whatever category that you can as an enlisted person. But, point being, I was like, well, I can try that. And they were like, no, dude, the line's long as shit. They were like, the particular recruiter I talked to, he was like, no, they're not just letting anybody in the military anymore, which, you know what I mean? That's great. I think that's really good. You know what I mean? Again, I would hate if we ever got attacked, and we hopefully will never have to deal with that in my lifetime. And we're lucky, as far as I'm aware of, that we haven't had to deal with it at this point. But it's nice that there's so many people, or at least that's what he said, because he was like, you even, based on having gotten in trouble at all, you would have to get in like a paratrooping thing where you drop into combat zones, or some sort of like EMT type role where again you drop into combat zones. So he was like, basically something that's likely to be needed during combat, and so it's be likely that the line would be shorter because less people want to do that kind of stuff. Most people want to just serve out their time and get some sort of, benefit if they can. But ultimately, yeah, he was like, no, the lines are really long. So that's good. It's nice to know that there's so many people in our country that can do that, should the time come. But I've seen some dumb memes, which, what's funny about that? Well, that's a dumb way to start a story. But I mispronounced memes forever. I had never heard anybody say it. I'd only heard it read it like on my phone on the internet and shit, and I never heard any, and they were like, people wouldn't correct me, and one time this girl that I barely knew corrected me because I said like mames. I thought it was mames. I don't know why. Yeah, that's funny. I saw a meme though that's just said like why people don't attack America, but again, who knows what could have happened by now. And hopefully nothing like that does. But again, shouldn't our biggest concern just be China? Like, if anything's going to happen in our time that's not like AI, which, I don't know, I think I had mentioned it if I didn't, but even just like my phone made videos from days that I took a lot of photos, like traveling, of my son, holidays, and made better videos than I could. And yeah, no, I definitely feel like I've said it before. So I apologize about that. But point being, even in just the smallest ways, watching AI just absolutely blow us out of the water, or me particular, in certain tasks, it's just going to be at least one thing that we clearly have to worry about maybe in our lifetimes. You would certainly think that's one of the most pressing things. Why the fuck did I start talking about that? Oh yeah. Otherwise, just like China, right? I mean, I would think like, I know we're not even like supposed to talk about that, I don't think, but you would think if there's one thing we need to worry about, that's probably it, as far as just like, even just intellectually, even just if you think about like who knows, like, but they say what, like TikTok is like one of the most invasive apps based on your privacy and things like that. And it's like, obviously, even, and again, I know I've said this before, but my stylist thinks that like, well, it's an American app now, but I don't think just because it was bought by an American company, or they have some sort of company with an American address, that it's no longer owned by China, which is completely connected to the Chinese government. I don't think that that's changed in any way, and they have so much information from, you know what I mean? My point is, I think that they could pretty well get into a lot of people's heads if they wanted to, which, like, who knows? You see, it's like, it's funny. It's like, I remember reading a story. It was like a really, I thought, crazy story at the time when I was really younger. You know what it was? It's dumb to say. I've mentioned it before. The fucking 12 days that I spent in juvie, which is like nothing, I know, but thank God it was enough for me to realize I never, ever wanted to be involved in that shit anymore. Get my nose clean. this story though that basically was about like biological attacks, you know what I mean, and like things like that. And I thought it was crazy at the time, and then it's like you see it in, you know what I mean, Grand Theft Auto, and then you see it in the Avengers, and you know it's actually fairly popular fictional. It's a fairly popular fictional story, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. I don't know where I was going with that, but my point in saying that is maybe that's something else we would have to worry about. Not that fake stories come true, but that's the only other thing that you think like would be the easiest way to try to attack us, right? If you were gonna, not try to attack us digitally in some way, through, you know what I mean, everything that you know about us, but possibly just through the air, right? Some sort of, I know I'm just being crazy. I'm just saying the things that we would have to worry about in our lifetime, you would think. The things we would have to worry about in our lifetime, you would think. But hopefully nothing like they're dealing with. It's just like, most of the time people they don't pay as much attention. But again, it seems like people said it's because of the superpowers, the fact that, if somebody ever was stupid enough to try to, if say Putin was ever to try to be so, I mean, clearly he's egotistical, but be so like, you know what I mean? He's not, this isn't working out as easily as he thought it was going to. So it's like, you know what I mean? He's clearly, you would hope he wouldn't, but that's what I'm saying. But he's so obviously like, I don't know what to say. But weird that you'd almost be worried, right? I know that guy, Brian Fogel, that lives just like in Boulder, or he lived in Boulder at one time, was concerned about Putin, but obviously it's because he revealed the whole scandal of the Russian doping during the Olympics. I think it was during it was Sochi. I don't remember. I shouldn't try to say Sochi. Was it Sochi? I don't remember. It's the one in Russia, but he lives in Colorado and he was concerned about that. So I know I'm just talking shit. He really revealed some stuff with some very damning evidence. Amazing to see that. Crazy that he, doesn't matter. But you would just obviously see that the guy's he just wants to be the baddest motherfucker on the planet. And the fact that it would he's got so many people against him. He's got everybody against him. He's got almost the whole world against him, right? I mean, everybody standing against him. Even I tried to look up that story where I was going to try to verify where I'd heard that like 4 years ago Putin was overtaking and just disappearing like fucking billionaires and shit, and I couldn't find anything on it because they even said that Russian billionaires, local people in his own I don't know what to call it, country, that were very wealthy were talking against what he's doing and saying that they don't want to be doing what he's doing. So as far as invading Ukraine and trying to keep this up, but I don't know. I heard, I think somebody said there's like a 40-mile long convoy. Did I hear that? Is that correct? There's a 40-mile long convoy between Ukraine and Russia? I don't know. That sounds excessive. I could try to look it up, but what if it comes like that thing about who knows, huh? What would you just type? 40-mile probably, right? Yeah, convoy. Oh shit. It's like it came up like immediately. 40-mile long convoy outside Ukraine. Holy shit. That was real. God, I thought I was exaggerating. That's fucking crazy, dude. Again, it's just it's so hard to quantify. It's so hard to actually understand. Like the only thing I have for any reference is like fictional shit, right? Or like history. But that doesn't really do you a service when you're trying to, I don't know, relate. Like none of us are going to relate to that. No, I can't. I don't think. Maybe you can. Maybe if you've been in combat, I guess easily you could say yes, I can relate to that. If you've been invaded in a country, you've been invaded. I'm a white boy that's lived in the United States his whole life, so I don't have to deal with that yet. Who knows what'll happen between now and the time this video comes out? But I don't even I couldn't even take up arms if I wanted to. I don't have any. I never bought any. I never worried about that. You know what I mean? Like, I know people freaked out during the pandemic and just like, you know what I mean? Bought a lot of people bought weapons that they didn't have in the past, but I don't know. It didn't. I don't know. We were fortunate, I guess. I guess maybe I didn't take the end of the world that seriously, but I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So we talked about Russia and Ukraine for like 25 minutes, right? That's good. Isn't that good? I want to be sympathetic. I know, but like I said, I don't think we can really actually possibly empathize unless you've been through that, and I haven't. So it's just like, and I don't know enough about it. And I get it's the whole deal. It's all everybody wants to talk about. My point in saying that is like sometimes I run into like interesting news stories, and I actually did personally find something all on my own that didn't have anything to do with the news, which is most of the time what I'm talking about. I try to incorporate stories in the news that are normally way later. I heard Eric Griffin a couple of weeks ago on a podcast say, "What is this? The old news?" And I'm so guilty of that. But point in saying that is I try to pull that stuff in every once in a while. And I guess it's dumb. I'm like curious, right? Like I used to watch like ABC every morning. The only reason I would watch that particular channel is because like it seems like if you're going to work a normal job and work out, you have to get up really early. Which isn't a bad thing necessarily. It's good for like discipline and all that. And I'm not going to even, I complained my ass off a couple weeks ago, and you know, it's just like I mentioned that time, like, you know, I kept going. I kept going, you know, it's not like I ever stopped. I do my workout every day. I was just saying I needed purpose and stuff like that. And gosh, I shouldn't get, that's a whole different, you know what I mean? I don't need to call back. I could, I guess, in the sense that like, I was saying I need purpose, right? And I guess like I heard Joe Rogan say like the purpose is like makes you feel good. It's you feel better. You know what I mean? You feel better that you're taking care of yourself, and that's the truth. I mean, 100%. When you are not taking care of your body and you're eating junk all the time, you clearly feel like shit. You know, like, or I personally do. I'll lie to myself. I'll be like, you know, I can't have that cracker, right? And then, you know, like I don't need the inflammation, and then I'll eat like a shitload of cereal, my son's cereal or something like that, or like eat a bunch of his Sour Patch Kids. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if I'm kidding myself. It's a bad thing, but I'd like to think I burn it off. I don't know. I know it's terrible for me. If I ever stopped exercising and then still had some of these terrible habits that I do, I still haven't broken down and done the donuts. But anyway, yeah, that's, I guess, the only update I would have on that. You know, still just doing everything like normal. You know, I think everybody knows you get burnt out sometimes. And you know what, again, I hate to say, I even heard Joe Rogan talk about that. He was talking about David Goggins. Like, he was like, even David Goggins sometimes, you know, stares at his shoes for 30 minutes, you know. It's like, he said it in a much more colorful way, and it was much more entertaining, obviously. But, the idea is, I guess everybody gets that feeling sometimes. And, you know, it was even like I'd said, it's just like, I know I'm going to do it. It's just, sometimes you're just like, fuck, dude, you don't want to, you know? And so it was nice to hear, because even in that podcast, I had mentioned like David Goggins and Cameron Haynes, and it's like, yeah, but they're just every day, they're fucking at it every goddamn day. You know what I mean? And you just wonder, but it's just a matter of, I don't know. No, and it's way better for you. It's way better. That's the most obvious thing. I mean, aside from, I know I'm going to have to do like cold plunges and stuff like that one day. If people don't, I mean, or don't, you know, it's just like, it seems like that's the obvious thing. And just as far as like my ankle and my knees and my toes on one foot, it's mostly that foot that I fucking broke my heel in 3 places. Obviously, it just didn't get near enough, you know, work for so long, for basically 2 months. And so it's like, and then when it did, it was not ready for action at all. But I think I was gonna say I was icing it, and now like I've heard like stuff about like you're not supposed to ice it, which is, I don't know, I've heard that there's like studies against not icing stuff, and I ice the shit out of it. But I'm just happy I can walk and exercise at all. And point in saying that is, it seems like the remedy for any sort of like joint pain and things like that, as I've mentioned for my mom and things like that before, is obviously getting an ice bath. So someday, that's on the someday list. I'm sure everybody's got one of those too. One of the, where you're just like, these are all the things when I have shitloads of money that I want to buy. You don't need that much money for one of those. I mean, again, I've seen those ones that are like fucking $18,000. So yeah, I guess it's like if you want that or a used car, you know what I mean? Depending on where you're at with things. My mom had mentioned that we could just give my son, when he turns 16, when he's ready for a car, give him my car, which is actually a great idea. I'm sure if it'll still be running. I mean, yeah, he's only, he's just 7 now, so that's in 9 years. Man, you see those Toyotas and obviously Hondas and stuff like that are, run forever. And then like Subarus seem to do really well too, and like Acuras, or at least my mom's Acuras anyway. I should say is the only thing I've known about. Just thinking about something dumb, but where Crystalie was talking about people that had an Acura and Tegura when they were growing up. It just made me think of that, which is so dumb, but it's funny. Yeah. Again, I think we talked about that enough. I think everybody's got pretty good idea, dude. You know what's one amazing thing? It's not amazing really at all, but I guess I literally didn't know how bad people eat. And I'm not shaming anybody, and I'm not saying anything bad, but I really didn't know how bad people eat and must like even feed their kids and stuff. And I'm not trying to be stupid. I know that probably sounds crazy. But like people, I keep saying I've been saying a lot. What the fuck's that about? I'll just say nothing, right? Wouldn't you just rather say nothing? Like if you were going to say or nothing, I think nothing's way better. I don't know what that's about. Like I need to fill time. Like I need to fucking fill empty space. I hope I don't keep doing it. I hope I can keep my eye on it. Obviously I can keep my, do you keep your ear on it? Probably keep your ear on it. What are we talking about? Oh yeah. I've been doing DoorDash, right? So like on the weekends and stuff. At this point, who knows what the fuck will happen? There has not been a lot of opportunity in the roofing business in Colorado. At this point, I still have a job with a roofing company. I also do the DoorDash on the side. And then, of course, I get to, I'm lucky enough in my free time to do this podcast. But in the DoorDash, I've just been like, I'll do grocery deliveries, right? So I go do your shopping for you, buy all your shit. And I mean, like, people are, and I'm not, I actually did this week, I didn't bring coffee one day. And I thought in my mind somehow that if I went back to my house, it was going to be too much time. Like, went back to my house, got coffee, like I probably had like something in the jar in the pot from yesterday, and I like could have thrown that into a cup at least, and at least had some coffee. And I was like, that's going to take too long, so I didn't do that. And I thought if I went to like fucking King Soopers or something that it would somehow be quicker, but I couldn't goddamn find the drinks in the place, and all those front things just had like realistically like monsters and stuff in them, and I was like, I'm not gonna drink one of those. But then ultimately, like, I found all the drinks, and I just ended up having monsters, just because like all the Starbucks drinks were basically like they have so much milk and sugar in them and shit like that, and it's like you're not getting really that much coffee, it's like I'm like I want coffee, you know what I mean? Like but I'm not gonna go. I should have just went to Starbucks. There was a Starbucks in that place, but I was like, I didn't want to. I don't know, then I can't drink it forever, you know what I mean? I buy hot coffee and like it's going to be 45 minutes, maybe if I want to burn the top of my mouth, if I want burns near my teeth on the top of my mouth, maybe 45 minutes when I can touch it, which I'm not trying to be a little bitch, but it's like, I should have already got coffee. I was dumb. I left the house without coffee. I kept saying I was going to make coffee, and then I fucking didn't. Why the fuck am I talking about this? Oh, yeah, because I did. But yeah, okay, yeah. So I did actually end up buying some Monsters that day, which I know, terrible for you. Crazy. I shouldn't have done it. It was awful. I woke up the next day feeling like shit. I was so angry. I'm angry all the time, though. That's my fault. That's on me. It has probably nothing to do with the Monsters. Maybe regret that I add the Monsters. Maybe regret that I had the Monsters. But I know they're terrible for you. But my point in saying that, I was auto shopping for these people. And like, they'll be like, yeah, I need, packs of the Monster Punch, or packs of like Monsters. If you can't find the Punch ones, I need Monsters. And it's like, and then they have me like going around. I almost, one time I bought produce and stuff, and I was like blown away. I was like, oh my God, this person eats fucking produce, dude. I guess that's maybe why I'm a dumb shit. Maybe that's why I'm so not aware that I should have money. But like, produce goes bad really fast, but we still always have produce. But like, bananas are $2. You know what I mean? Like, $2. Like, it's $2. Like, it's $2. So it's like, yeah, they go bad. It's $2. I mean, I'm not trying to be dumb, but like, and carrots. You get a big bag of carrots for like $2, it's like, it's not a lot of money. I'm not trying to be stupid. I mean, I know there's the myth. Yeah, if you want good shit, if you want like, if you want to buy like pomegranates and mangoes, which, how often do you buy a mango and it's a good mango? I mean, I'm not trying to be a pessimistic asshole, but like, it seems like half of them are all fucking, they've been smashed in their transporting, and like, some of them taste like shit. Sometimes you get a really good one, which, I mean, there's no replacement for that, but that's where it gets expensive, is you're just going to be buying shitloads of them, and maybe not all of them are going to be that good, but that's where you're supposed to buy them in season, right? And then it's like, just pay attention to wherever. Nobody's doing that. I don't even do that. There's no way. I just get shit that's out of season and get fucked. You buy the stuff that's just not high priced. Nobody cares. Nobody fucking cares. But point in saying that is like, when strawberries are in season, they're normally on sale, so because the store has a shitload of them, because they also can buy a lot of them when they're in season, when everybody's harvesting strawberries or whatever. So it's like, normally what fruit's on sale, but I don't know why I'm talking. Oh yeah, I do. Dude, fucking people, I go around the store. One time I go in the produce section. One goddamn time. Like, and I'm again, not trying to shame. Maybe I am trying to shame people. I don't know. Maybe I am. But then it's like, nobody's going to listen. It's like, the idea is like, which sucks, which I was the same way. It's like, you have to come to terms at your own time. But I'll buy like soups and shit, which, like, dude, I thought soups were healthy a long time ago too. Like, my mom was, you could call it mean at the time. I thought she was being jerked to me. She was saying like, soups aren't healthy. They're full of sodium. And it's like, really, any of that any of the shit that's just like can sit on a shelf for a really long time. I don't know a lot about anything, but probably isn't that good for you, right? Like, you probably want to eat something closer to that's fresh, is my thought. And I'm not saying, when the pandemic happened, for instance, we tried to buy whatever was left on the shelves, and it was canned food and shit like that. And so we still have some. I buy beans and stuff, of course, in the can, because I guess I'm a bitch. I don't know how to. My sister does the bean thing. I don't know. I need to just buy the dry beans and turn them into beans. I don't know how many people are doing that though. So these people, dude, and I'm not saying soup's bad, but like, they don't go to like the frozen dinner aisle. The fucking frozen dinner aisle, dude. Like, I ate those when I was a kid. I thought that's what people ate. I literally thought that's what people ate, because my grandparents had shitloads of them. But I think it was because they wanted to. My mom says my grandma was a bad cook, and like, I don't know, my grandpa didn't. He just let her cook, and she just would buy like frozen dinners and shit like that. But like, people will have me buy like a bunch of those, or like just like all this frozen shit. Like the only food that they're getting that's not like in a box or, fucking in a can is like frozen shit, which I don't know. I guess I buy lots of frozen strawberries, but it's just because you put fresh strawberries in the blender, and I swear they taste like farts every time. It's always a farty taste. I don't know why it is. And then not to mention the smoothie or the shake or whatever you have starts to turn like a brownish. It gets that like nasty foam on the top of it. It gets that like gross foam. Dude, I used to make shakes and like smoothies for people, and they'd wait like 25 minutes to eat them, and I'd be like, dude, it's bad now. It's fucking not even good anymore. Like, I don't care if you judge me on that. You didn't drink at a time. Those fruits are bad. But now I've learned that you can, not that you should just fucking drink your thing, but the frozen strawberries are way better in a smoothie. Frozen strawberries are way better in a shake. They're just, you gotta have frozen strawberries. So I do buy frozen shit myself. We buy stuff in boxes. One thing I can't get away from is fucking plastic, dude. I can't seem to get away from plastic at all. Like like the applesauces are in plastic, Go-Gurts are in plastic. Even if I get yogurt, it's in plastic. It's like so much stuff. Like the pickles even come in plastic. Oh yeah, I think I talked about that. Dude, the pickles were back in stock, yo. There was pickles. They weren't the good ones. They're still not good ones. They're still not the halves that you want. I got quartered ones. I was kind of pissed because they're selling them in the big jars. Dude, I like those Clausen ones that you put in the fridge, and they have those big plastic containers. They were selling quartered ones in those, which I was kind of pissed because quartered ones aren't. I like the halved ones. I'd rather have the halved or the whole pickle. I don't know why. It's and people could probably make a gay joke about that, which I walked right into it, so it is what it is. But yep. Now I'm trying to think of a gay joke. But that's all good. You gotta take down the whole pickle, right? It's dumb. Somebody else would probably walk all over me, though. Yep, there's my phone. Hey, look at the phone. God, I'm out of my mind. I just don't even remember what we were talking about. It doesn't matter. Oh yeah, just the amount of, I can't believe it. It's not like it's that bad because it's like I don't necessarily know if you're just delivering fast food, you don't really know. You know what I mean? Like I even mentioned a couple weeks ago, I feel like I should start giving myself some sort of like cheat day or time. But again, then I've been fucking having handfuls of cereal and shit like that. I've been being dumb, and it's again, my body hurts the next day immediately. So it's like literally when I start to grab it, I'm like, okay, so you're gonna have fucking pain tomorrow. You just have to know you're gonna feel like shit. Like it's so dumb. You're literally, but sometimes I don't know. My point in saying that is, if you're delivering fast food to somebody, people could just be having like their cheat day or whatever. It's like you don't really know. But when you're buying everybody's groceries, it's like, fuck, dude, this is the way you're gonna eat for however long these are your groceries, aside from whatever else you have, depending on when the last time you went to the store is. But I just couldn't believe it. I mean, again, that's probably why it was just a lot of like frozen food and preserved food, and like people aren't buying produce. People don't want me to purchase, okay, the one person maybe, but maybe I'm not doing it often enough. Maybe I'm not spending enough time going and shopping for people. I don't know, man. It's just, you see everybody clearly having like health issues their whole lives. Like I think that was one of the biggest things that scared me, is like I know that like so of course it's you see yourself and you're not happy about the way you look, because obviously one you want to eat bad, then you feel like you can counter it with exercise and stuff, so it's just two. I don't know what the fuck else I was gonna say now, but yep, now I don't remember where I was going with that. Tight, dude. But so another thing I found this week. So I was listening to, I almost had no idea of this. I had to like write it down. But and that's why I picked up my phone and put it in my face earlier. But so like I listen to a lot of music, and as you're growing up, and maybe this is my issue, but so for instance, like that song Miami by Will Smith, that song Ride With Me by Nelly, and It Was a Good Day by Ice Cube. All of those came through playlists and mix CDs and fucking, I can't, probably not mix cassettes, mix tapes and stuff like that, but probably more like mix CDs, because those were huge when I was a kid. But I listened to those songs a lot. And I know, like, again, like Miami, people could probably talk shit about that, but I feel like Ride With Me by Nelly was a fairly popular song. And even like people that consider themselves pretty badass, like It Was a Good Day by Ice Cube, right? So like, I had no idea, and I'm sure I haven't looked it up. I probably could look it up. I should have done research, but I was mostly just blown away because I had no fucking idea. But what for, like, so like It Was a Good Day, the Isley Brothers. So like I'd probably never even listened to them, but I'm sitting listening to like older music, right? And so I was listening to the Isley Brothers, which is, I don't even know how, when they played music. I should, it doesn't matter at this point. I'm not going to look it up. But I was listening to the song Footsteps in the Dark. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the song Footsteps in the Dark is the same beat and music to Ice Cube's the Today Is a Good Day song, which is fucking crazy. Like, I guess you think, like, I'm sure, or you'd like to think that like Ice Cube paid him for the beat and all that, right? But it's dead copy, like a dead fucking copy. It's the exact same shit. It's like, you listen to the Isley Brothers Footsteps in the Dark, and it's fucking Ice Cube's It Was a Good Day, Today Is a Good Day, whatever the fuck it's called. It's either It Was a Good Day or Today Is a Good Day. Everybody knows what song I'm talking about. And again, that's like, geez, listen to that, right? Like, I could have came up with a better term, but my point in saying that is, like, if you think that, say, Will Smith's Miami is a little vanilla, then even probably Ice Cube came across your thing. But like, The Whispers. So this band, The Whispers, again, I'm just listening to like older music, some music I haven't listened to that often, and it's And the Beat Goes On is the song, and that's the music for Will Smith's Miami. Like, I always thought that was a badass beat. I was thinking like, damn, dude, whoever put this beat together, which again, I'm sure Will Smith's got shitload of money, just like probably Ice Cube did. I know they didn't forever have money, but they probably paid like the Whisperers, right? The Whispers. They probably paid the Whispers, right? Like Will Smith probably paid the Whispers for that beat. But like the Miami beat, I don't know. You can say it's whatever, but I liked it. I liked that beat. You know what I mean? Like it comes on, if Miami comes on and you're in the right mood, I don't know if it probably would be dumb if you're in Miami. I've never been in Miami. Maybe you'd feel like, this is too, I'm not going to listen to it because I'm going to Miami, because that's dumb. You know what I mean? But if it comes on for me, if I hear Miami, Will Smith's Miami, dude, it's a fucking, I want to move, and I had no idea. I had no idea that the beat is not his. Like, it's clearly not his. It's the exact same as the Whispers. It's the same on the song. And then Nelly. So like because I was listening to this song and I was like, fuck, where have I heard that before? I was like, I feel like I've sung those lyrics and I've never heard this song, because I was listening to music that I've pretty much never heard. It was just older music. It was by a band called DeBarge. Is it DeBarge? Is that how they pronounce that? DE capital BARGE. Is that how they pronounce that? DeBarge. So DeBarge, maybe I'm probably fucking not pronouncing that right. Like I didn't pronounce meme right. I thought it was mame, but I wonder if that's a word. I wonder if meme is a word. Like, I wonder if Emmy, it's probably not. I'm trying to like defend myself because I'm embarrassed. Who cares? But I felt like I could fucking hear something. But yeah, so Nelly's Ride With Me, right? It says like, I like the way you brush your hair. I like those stylish clothes you wear. I was like, I fucking sung that before. Like that was music that I listened to while I was growing up. That is completely from DeBarge. I like it. So these are not his lyrics. Like, again, I'm sure he paid DeBarge, right? Like, you would think Nelly probably paid DeBarge for the lyrics in Ride With Me, but I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I guess, I don't know. Sometimes when the fucking veneer comes off or whatever it is, like sometimes when you're like, forever I've sung these lyrics, forever I've liked this song, like this was a song and a point in my childhood. And maybe it's just because those songs that like came out in the summers of when you were a kid, don't they like, they shape that summer? Like if you think back to certain songs or certain songs come on, like I don't remember when the fuck Miami came out, but it reminds me of that time, of like being a kid or whatever. I'd like to think about what Will Smith was doing in Miami, and I have thought about that before because I'm sure it's badass. And I've even heard him talk about when he was filming Bad Boys, and he was down in Miami, and he was like, tight shirts, Miami, and it's like, you hear people talk about Miami, and it sounds wonderful. But I don't know what it's like for Will Smith in Miami. You know what I mean? So I can't really, I'd like to relate. I'd like to think about it like that, but when those lyrics come on, I think about where I was when that song was hot, when it was, and you're like, dude, again, Will Smith's Miami was never hot. Will Smith's Miami was, it was never the shit. But dude, again, that's like not being able to like come up with something, not being able to relate out of anything that's in the news aside from the fucking Russia Ukraine thing, which again I know is probably a big deal, but maybe someday more information will come out where we'll be like, oh, I see more sides of this whole story. But that's something that I just listening to music, which you can do while you fold laundry and shit, which you'd like to think most people do stuff like that, right? You probably fold laundry or do dishes or something like that, or at least if you, I don't know, shower. You can listen to music sometime in your life, but point being, it's like some people act like you're like privileged. Like sometimes I'll say like, I was listening to a podcast and I'm like, oh, how do you have time? How do you possibly have time? It's like, I don't know, don't you like do dishes? Do you ever like have to fold your laundry? Like, can't you listen to something during that? But I don't know. Point saying, it was really cool that while I was just like listening to some music, I was like, it was a huge discovery moment for me, which I know people say like, I guess Led Zeppelin actually stole a lot of their shit, right? So it's like, I don't know if all those people got paid, for all those lines and beats and music and everything that they clearly copied. But you'd like to think they did, right? Or their estate or whatever. But I'll be right back. I'm back. You know what I noticed recently? Well, I noticed it a long time ago, but I was reminded of it recently. Yeah, even if a movie holds up, it seems like even if a movie is really good, right? Like you forget that it was made, say, 10 years ago or fucking, and I know that sounds dumb, but you forget that it was made 20 years ago, or you forget how long ago that it was made because it's so good. You're kind of caught up in it, right? You don't feel like, oh, this is funny for the time, or this is, ironic for the time, or this is, this was paramount at the time. You know what I mean? Like you're like, holy shit, this is a good movie, and I'm just watching it. Or like sometimes it's like the stuff is where you're like, fuck, you couldn't say that now, which I know is the thing. Everybody's like, anything you can say then you could say now. Here, let's hear it. You know what I mean? That's more Whitney, but Whitney Cummings. What was I talking about? I'm scared of her, so now I can't think. No, I don't know what the fuck I was talking about. She would never see this, so it doesn't matter. But I thought I had it. I don't have it. I really don't. I lost it. Doesn't matter. Nope, don't remember. I lost it. don't know. That's crazy. I'm out of my mind. Oh, so you watch a movie, right? And you're like, okay, I buy all of it. I'm drawn in. I'm following the story. I want to be in your world, right? And then somebody pulls out a fucking cell phone, and immediately you are taken back to whenever the fuck that cell phone was present. And it for me, it's so crazy how much it takes me out of the story. I know it sounds dumb, but like you see that cell phone, which is crazy, right? But like, we're so used to them, and like, everybody's fucking got one. And even children have one. My son wants one. My mother said she was going to buy him one. Bad call. But whatever. You said it. Even children have them. Everybody has one. So you see them pull a cell phone out on a movie or an old show or something like that. And it just, for me, for some reason, again, I guess it's like the song that takes me back to that time. I see the cell phone and it takes me back to that time immediately. Because, like, right, you watch and you see somebody pull out a flip phone and it's like, 10, 15 years immediately backwards. Immediately, right? And you're just like, it's so crazy how it will age any entertainment, I feel like, immediately. It's just crazy. I know it's a silly thing to say, but it's so weird how it takes me out of the story. Like, I'll be so drawn in and watching or listening, and then I see that cell phone and it's the weirdest thing, which really is new technology, right? I mean, well, I guess it's actually not as new as we think it is, but point being, it's fairly new, I guess, but so is fucking movies, I guess, really. But point saying, because the advancement of the product over the years, if it's not like a circle, a circle, this is not a fucking circle, god, I suck. If it's not like a fucking rectangle, like that, we these ones that we have, which even now, because of the camera difference on like the back of them, you know what I mean, anybody that looks at that, you look at the back and you're like, if it has those three, okay, that's either a 12 Pro or a 13 Pro or a 12 Pro Max or a 13 Pro Max. You immediately know, even that, you know what I mean? So it's like, even kind of in a small, narrow few years, you can actually even still narrow it down fairly well. Which, I don't know, it's such a weird thing to say, I guess, but it's just something I noticed, which, like, people probably don't even think about it. They're probably just like, oh yeah, 1997 or whatever, and just fucking keep watching the movie or whatever. But I'm just like, wow, it's just so weird how you're like, fuck, do you remember that? Like, or like, I know it's dumb. Someday people will look at it and be like, what the fuck is that? Right? Like, right? They'll be like, what? That's what their cell phones were like, I don't know. I guess they like make jokes about it in like the Avengers movie and stuff, right? Like Peter Parker's always like, he's like, that really old movie? And it's like funny because you think like, this came out in these people's life. Like, that came out in my parents' lifetime, you know what I mean? So if he's talking to anybody of any normal age, it's he's saying something that is like, well, I guess it depends on where you're at with things, right? It more depends on, like, have you came to terms with how your aging is and whether or not you're satisfied with that and whether or not you're happy that, you're aging in the way you are, which is, again, I mean, that's the reason why to exercise. I feel like the whole deal. Oh yeah, and that was what I was saying earlier. Is I never really finished the thought, but like, I see like my grandpa and stuff, like out in his later years, where it's like he's got to really watch his sugar intake and stuff. I mean, I think he's diabetic, but I don't think he was always diabetic. right? Or I guess they say you are always diabetic, but maybe you just do or don't need insulin all the time, or whatever it is. But he was, you know what I mean? I guess point being, I figure if you maintain it and take care of it earlier in your life, hopefully later in your life, it's not going to be so goddamn rough. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying he lives a rough life. He's very, I see some ages of people and I'm like, fuck, dude, you look terrible. You're going to die. You're going to die tomorrow, you know? But, yeah, I guess I hope that if we take care of ourselves and we try not to eat so much. It's funny, I was talking to Breck in the break, and I think we're gonna make muffins, and I fucking know I'll have one. I shouldn't, but I goddamn know I will. I'm a piece of shit. It sucks, and I will regret it, and it's terrible. But I guess I just tell myself I'm gonna burn it off, which is terrible. Because like I said, then you ever quit exercising, but I don't think you should. It's like, you know, they say like what, like, you know, even people like that don't use their cars, like they have like a car that they don't use. They have to go out and drive it every once in a while just to keep the, you know, valves and everything lubricated properly, right? Like you have to have, or somebody go fucking drive it, right? I don't know. I remember working on car dealership lots when I was younger, and that was a whole thing. They'd sometimes just be like, yeah, just go drive that car around. You know what I mean? Just because it's been sitting for a week. Like, it's like somebody needs to drive it. You know what I mean? That's the same thing with your body. Like, you got to keep it moving. So my point in saying that is as long as I'm capable of moving, which is, I think one of those things you learn when you can't move, right? Like, when I couldn't walk, it's like, it's so obvious. You're like, man, I never stopped exercising. I just exercised in different ways. But point in being that then you realize how lucky you are to even be able to do it, which is, there's so many people, and I know it sounds stupid, I guess. It doesn't sound stupid because it's cliche, right? Everybody says that. Like, you know, there's so many people that can't do it, so you're supposed to be grateful. But it's true, man. You really are just, it's like, you're fortunate to be able to stand on your fucking feet. Like, it's crazy. You take it for, I personally take it for granted already. It's only been 3 years, and I already, you know, not even 3 years. And I already, you know, just stand in the shower joyfully, you know, sometimes maybe tired and not so joyfully. But it's like, there was a time when I just was fucking couldn't wait to be able to do that again, you know, because it's like you forget how hard it is to not be able to fucking stand in a shower, you know. Like, I know it sounds dumb, but I don't know. I guess we're fortunate to be able to move, and that should be the whole deal. But other than that, it's like if you keep your body moving, you hope it'll move longer. It'll be stronger longer. It'll maintain strength for a longer period of time. You know, it's like I guess the idea is, if you know, it's that dumb, what is it, like, you know, a body in motion stays in motion or whatever. Like, I know I think I heard it on a commercial. It's probably a fucking pharmaceutical commercial, really, but they were probably using it for a total different reason. I don't remember where I heard it. It's probably a more popular term than I can remember. I don't remember what I was talking about at all. Oh yeah, I was talking about cell phones, but yeah, interesting how that goes. I have other things, but it's like it's been almost an hour, so it's like I know not a lot of people are gonna stick around for the whole hour anyway. It's an hour's pretty good amount of time, but you guys could subscribe to the video, and you could hit the like button. And you can come back next week, and I'll certainly be making a video, and I'll certainly be back again, and we'll be talking next week. And I love you, and I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.